Okay, so now we pay attention to question number 3. In question number 3, we are in a hypothetical situation where we have to take a look at a margin position. There's a particular stock called the MTEL Berhad. The current market price for this stock is 50 ringgits per share. And we want to invest 5,000 ringgits out of our own pocket. And we arrange a facility with a broker who is willing to put an additional 5,000 ringgit to us so that we are able to invest 10,000 ringgits in total. Now, of course, this is not for free. The broker is going to charge us an 8% annual interest rate for this margin facility. So what we have to find out is what will happen in scenario 1 if the stock goes up by 10% at the end of next year. We are also informed that the stock currently pays no dividends. So that makes life particularly easy for us because we do not have to worry about a cash outflow to reimburse the dividend payments to anybody else. So what is our performance going to be in this case? In other words, what is going to be our rate of return, holding period return? So we know that our position is for 10,000 ringgits and the stock appreciated by 10%. So out of that 10,000 investment, we made an extra 10%. So we made a profit of 1,000 ringgits because 10% of 10,000 is 1,000 ringgits. Now, ideally speaking, this money would be all would belong to us in its entirety, but we do have to make an interest payment. Our financing facility for 5,000 ringgits will incur an 8% annual interest charge. So 8% of 5,000 is going to be 400 ringgits. So out of our 1,000 ringgits of profit, we have to pay back 400 ringgits. So what is going to be our remaining profit? Our remaining profit is going to be 600 ringgits. That is going to be 1,000 ringgits minus 400 in interest charge. So that will be 600 ringgits. How much money did we invest? Do not worry about the 10,000 because that is the broker's portion of 5,000. Out of our own pocket, we invested 5,000. So out of a 5,000 ringgit of investment, we generated a return of 600. So 600 divided by 5,000 will give us 12%. So 12% is going to be our return. So once again, you can see that leverage is at play here. If we went completely equity financed, meaning that if we completely bought these shares out of our own money, we would have enjoyed a 10% return. But because we have this margin facility, even after paying for the interest, we enjoy a 12% profit. So our money goes up, we generate an extra 2% income. Okay, so now in the scenario 2, part B, we have an issue with maintenance margin. If you recall the previous workshop or the previous video from last week, I did mention that the maintenance margin is an amount below which the equity cannot fall. So this means that out of the entire position, the value of the equity cannot go below 30%. So in other words, the equity portion has always have to remain 30% or above. So the way to solve for this is whatever is the equity portion divided by the entire position. So what is our equity portion here? Our entire position is 200 shares. We bought 200 shares here, 10,000 divided by $50, 50 ringgits a share. So we have 200 shares, the price of 200 shares. Out of that, 5,000 has been provided to us as financing by the broker. So the remaining portion will be our equity. And of course, this numerator will keep on changing all the time based on the market value because this P, the market price, is variable. So our equity portion will fluctuate constantly. And this entire amount is divided by our entire position. And this on the right-hand side is going to be the maintenance margin ratio. For us, it is 30%, so 0.30. So we plug in the market price here and we get the P equals 35.71 or lower. So what this means is if at any point in time, the stock price goes below 35.71, we will receive a phone call or an email from the broker instructing us to deposit more money because our equity portion is getting too low. And if it gets even dangerously lower, if the market price keeps falling more and more, there's a chance that the broker can lose his or her entire amount. In that case, not only would we lose our equity, we also have to pay back extra to the broker to compensate for their equity loss. So this is the simple way of determining what is that threshold, what is that risky danger zone. Based on the 30% maintenance margin, we cannot allow the stock price to go beyond 35.71. But of course, we do not control the share price. So whenever the share price approaches this margin, we have to be careful and have some cash ready to deposit back to the broker. All right, so for the last question has 3 portions. I will solve for you A and B. Ideally speaking, you are expected to attempt answering these questions by yourself. So I will give you the basic outlay of A and B, and then I will discuss the part C in the workshop, and I will give you an extra chance to go through and try to solve part C based on my explanations of part A and part B. So once again, it's the same company, MTEL Berhad. The stock price is currently 50 ringgits a share, and your broker gives you 15,000 ringgits to establish a margin account. So we want to sell short 1,000 shares. We want to sell short 1,000 shares, so 1,000 shares worth 20,000 ringgits currently. And on top of that, we give our broker 15,000 in margin. So that is our equity portion, 15,000. And the broker will lend us $20,000 worth because they would be short selling on our behalf. So if you recall from the last week's workshop video, you should remember that on the left-hand side, we have these 2 elements, the margin facility, the margin amount or the equity amount that we hold, and the market value of the shares that the broker or the dealer is selling on our behalf. So if these are the facts, let's see what will happen if the share price goes up to $22, $20, and $18. Once again, to make things simpler, we're going to assume that the company does not pay any dividend. The dividend amount will come in part C, which is what I want you to solve. Okay, so it seems pretty simple so far, pretty common sense. If we entered into a short position at 20 ringgits per share, and then we have a position of 1,000 shares, and then in 1 year, the stock price went up by 2 ringgits. So in short selling, the only way you can make profit is if the price goes down. But here the price went up by 2 ringgits. So of course we're going to lose money. We're not going to make any money here. How much money are we going to lose? Our position is for 1,000 shares, and we lost 2 ringgits per share. So our loss is going to be 2,000 ringgits. Pretty simple. No issue with dividends. Okay, so this one is done. What if the price remains unchanged? Well, if the price remains unchanged, we don't make any money, we don't lose any money. It remains the way it is. So profit or loss is simply 0. And in the last one, the stock price goes down to 18. Now, this is where we should be making money. The stock price depreciated by 2 ringgits, so we should be making 2 ringgits a share for 1,000 shares. In other words, we should be making 2,000 ringgits in profit. So pretty simple, but at the same time, we are trying to look at a rate of return. So the rate of return means we have to answer in percentage terms. In the first scenario, we lost 2,000 ringgits, and our initial investment is for 15,000. Our equity portion is for 15,000. So this is the tricky portion about short selling. You should always calculate your profit and loss based on your equity portion or your margin portion. So 15,000 is what you're forking out from your pocket. Out of that, you lost 2,000. So in percentage terms, you lost 13.33%. In scenario number 2, well, it's 0. 0 divided by anything is 0. So rate of return is 0. And in the last case, we made 2,000 ringgits in profit. Once again, our equity portion is 15,000. So we made 13.33%. So yeah, that's pretty simple. Let's take a look at part B. Before we had a maintenance margin here of 0.30. The short selling situation, again, we have a margin situation, but in this case, the margin rate is 25%, so 0.25. So once again, we're going to make use of the same principle. The principle is going to be the equity portion divided by the total position. So what is going to be the equity portion? In here, remember in the accounting equation on the left-hand side, our total assets are going to be consisting of two things. One is the 15,000 ringgits in equity that we are posting to our broker, and then the financing facility for 20,000 ringgits that the broker is giving us. So the entire amount is going to be the broker's contribution of 20,000 ringgits and our contribution of 15,000 ringgits in cash. In total, 20,000, 15,000, therefore 35,000. So the entire portion is going to be 35,000. Now, out of that 35,000, right here, the broker is actually financing something variable. They are financing 1,000 shares. Previously, the broker did not finance the shares. Instead, the broker provided us with $5,000 in cash to buy those shares. Remember, this is the difference between a long position and a short position. In the short position, the broker is financing the shares, 1,000 shares times market price. In the long position, the broker is financing the cash amount. So if the broker is financing this much, the remaining portion must be our equity, must be our contribution, must be our margin, divided by the entire position, which is 1,000 shares once again, times P, which is the market price, which will keep on varying all the time. So this ratio should always be 0.25 or more. So when we solve for this, we get 28 ringgits. Now, in the long position before, we remember that we said that the stock price cannot fall below 35.71, or else we will experience an unfortunate margin call. But in the short position, the price cannot go above the 18 ringgits because our losses arise from appreciation of price, because we can only profit when the price goes down. So ringgit 28 is when we would have to get worried or have some extra cash laying around, hoping that the margin situation we will not have to face. So that actually pretty much covers all the questions that I wanted to discuss in here. I'm interested in seeing how you approach question number C. I will give you a little bit of a hint though. The question C, part C and part A are pretty much the same. The only difference here is that we have to pay back 1 ringgit dividend per share for this stock. In part A, we assumed that there are no dividends. Remember, the stocks, the shares do not belong to us. We are simply borrowing taking a momentary position. We're borrowing this as something that is not ours. So whoever is the rightful owner of the stock is entitled to receive those dividends. We did not assume this in part A, but now we're going to assume this realistic notion that the company does pay a $1 ringgit per share as dividend. So based on this information, how would the result in part A change? I'm interested to see how you approach this, and it's really not that difficult to solve, but I will be checking on with you in the upcoming workshop live session tomorrow. And in case anybody has trouble with it, I will also provide you with the solution myself and walk you through it. Okay, so that concludes the part 2 of the tutorial 3 discussions. In part 1, the video in part 1, we looked at questions 1 and 2. And in part 3, we looked at margin trading and short selling. Once again, for any questions or queries, send me an email or send me a message via WhatsApp. And I look forward to seeing you in the next meeting. Thank you and have a good day.